From the very beginning, I really thought this whole process is not going to yield anything of any significance. In my view, it's nothing less than a charade. Who could possibly expect 30 different representatives coming from all over? Many of them, specifically Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, the United States, Turkey, and other players, not to speak of Assad himself, the scores of rebels, the former representative of the rebels. How on earth are going to get any kind of consensus to create a so-called transitional government? It doesn't make sense. It never made sense. I did not expect anything to come out of this Geneva too, and I don't think anything is going to come out of it in the near future either. We've got to think an entirely different way. Assad is gaining. He will continue to gain more ground. Thousands are getting killed. Hundreds of thousands more refugees are being displaced day in and day out. And we are basically watching this human tragedy unfolding in front of our eyes and pretty much doing nothing about it. And you know what is the irony, what is the painful thing is that we, the politicians, be that Americans, Russian, and everyone else, simply keep talking and talking about political solution, but in fact, they know only too well there is going to be no such a solution until they change the balance of forces on the ground. Political solution is the only solution, to be practical speaking. But you cannot get a political solution only by getting the combatants together, because people do not sit, combatants, opposing people, groups, do not sit and talk to one another, when in fact they think they're actually fighting for their lives. Bashar Assad is fighting for his life. The rebels are fighting. Just imagine the losses that they have sustained. Under what conditions they are going to sit and reconcile. It's not going to happen. So what you need first of all to do is, if you're looking for a political solution, give the rebels the opportunity first of all to regain some ground. Make sure understand that Assad changed his calculus. He should come to the conclusion that he cannot possibly win this conflict. That's what's going to be necessary. And unless you do so, nothing will change. And the only country that can make that difference is the United States. And as long as the United States remains complacent to a great extent, and as long as no one else is talking about this horrifying tragedy that has taken place, nothing is going to change. The time for President Obama to wake up and do something about it. And you know what? I am tired. I'm sick and tired of listening to the no, this is impossible, and this is impossible. If we supply weapons, it's going to fall into the wrong hand. I've had it with all of these discussions. We don't want to hear what is impossible. We need to hear what's possible. And what's possible is to provide the vetted groups with the kind of weapons that is going to make a difference on the ground. And if that doesn't happen, we're going to be looking not about 150,000 dead, but 300, 400, 500,000, and maybe 10 million or more Syrians will become refugees. That cannot and should not happen. And every day that passes, this tragedy is getting worse. The United States pretty much left Syria to the whims of Russia. You can talk about all kinds of scenarios. The United States gets along with Russia and try to find a solution. Well, they did. Nothing came out of it. The Geneva 1 and Geneva 2 produced absolutely nothing. Why? Because Russia's interest is completely different from that of the United States. You can have the Iranians involved because they have a major interest in there. But then the Saudis are not interested to see continuation of Iranians' involvement to the extent that it is already involved. This conflict is no longer limited to Syria, and people just don't get it. This is a conflict between the Shiite world and the Sunni world. This is a defining war. And we are sitting and saying, well, let's get this group together, let's get that group together. We have to go far beyond that and begin to think in terms, what do we do in order to get rid of Bashar Assad? That is a prerequisite. I cannot imagine any transitional government under any circumstances to be able to sit down and say, with Bashar Assad is part of it. It's not going to happen.